Hi.
Hello.
Welcome to the 12th House Podcast. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Wallace.
We have a fun one today. We're going to do something a little experimental.
Yes.
Kind of like
case study.
Yeah, pulling the curtain back. We, as you probably know, have a class called Creators Cashing In coming up very soon. Very, very soon. And we wanted to take some of the concepts that are in Notion for Magical Baddies, Creators Cashing In, and apply them to some really cool creators who are doing really good work in the world, but maybe are not getting compensated in the way that they should be.
Yeah, especially because you could have a huge following on one platform, but maybe it doesn't easily convert to how you're trying to sell a certain product.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be super confusing and maybe discouraging, but it doesn't mean that you're doing anything necessarily wrong.
Right.
It's just like a pivot.
I feel like so many people get caught up in making content and growing an audience, and then they're like, they do it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, wait, how do I monetize this thing?
Yeah.
Like, how do I make money from this thing now? Like, what am I supposed to do? And even maybe with TikTok, because you can grow so fast on there, it might come as a surprise. And now you're used to spending all this time on this thing, but you're not feeling the reciprocal energy of it's nourishing and taking care of you too in the way that it should be.
Totally.
So we did a little call out for brands and creators who potentially would want to be in our case study. And this wonderful person, Frankie Simmons, volunteered herself. So we are going to be doing a little case study on Frankie's brand. You can follow Frankie at Hey Frankie Simmons. She's got 30,000 followers on IG and 300,000 followers on TikTok. Girlfriend does not fuck around.
Nope.
And her content is really cool. Her brand is #internet big sister. And she talks a lot about healing work through pleasure, and she talks about religious recovery and recovering from religious trauma. She grew up Calvinist, and it sounds like that really shaped her world to survive. She had to do a lot of people pleasing and talking down to herself. And what she's done is really reparented herself and is helping other people reparent themselves too. And she makes really cute daily pep talk videos and helpful information, videos about how to connect to your body, how to be more embodied, how to recover from, your that girl lifestyle and hyper productivity, and just be up on the planet. And I think we need more of that.
And reducing shame. I think the productivity messaging especially, and that girl aesthetic, which I didn't know that it was that name or that it had that name, even though that's pretty much been around since, I don't know, social media
It's
started.
very girl boss-ish, girl boss adjacent, it feels like,
And also that we've defined that has one specific look,
mm-hmm.
and it looks like this. It looks like usually being really regimented and hyper vigilant in very specific ways that are great for capitalism.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so Frankie's brand is really cool, and she's doing good work out there. And she currently has a membership community, but we're going to kind of put that aside for a second. We're going to come up with a bunch of ideas for how we could potentially monetize this channel. And honestly, we're just kind of going to brainstorm and spitball, and I'm going to give us a timer of just 5 minutes to brainstorm. This is kind of what we do on our team. It's really helpful to have parameters when you're brainstorming of either you only have this amount of time, or you're only allowed to use these ideas or this specific context. So we're going to talk about direct paid and indirect paid content. Those are going to be our 2 ways that we can come up with ideas. I set my timer. We've got 5 minutes. What comes up for you first?
Definitely a podcast. And this could also be as part of, say, a Patreon community, potentially. I can see her very easily having a devoted following that is very happy to pay for a gated podcast where it's more of an intimate, maybe there's a daily cast, maybe there's a weekly seminar, but it's really about connecting with her on a more intimate level, which I feel like behind a paywall people wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I think there's a hint to the numbers here. She's got 30,000 followers on TikTok, on Instagram, which is a ton, but 300,000 on TikTok.
Yeah.
And I think those followers to monetize on TikTok are very different than your Instagram followers. Yeah. They expect a lot of content regularly. They want to see you all the time, right?
Yeah.
So they want more content.
Yeah.
Typically, I would say that user is different. So I think you're right. Making more content that's just gated, that is behind a paywall. That's just more because people want more of you. So yeah, I think that doing her daily pep talks every day. Like you pay $5 a month to get access to a daily pep talk that happens at, I don't know, 8:15 every morning, and it's 15 minutes, and you just log in and you can enjoy it, or you can get the replay of it. Like, that would be so fun.
Yeah, I feel like to your point, they want more content. Like an easy way to scale it up is like just making slightly longer content. It could be 10 minutes. It doesn't need to be like, you know, people are obviously very engaged for these 30 seconds. So even just being like, okay, I'm going to give you a little 15-minute thing.
Totally. And like even logistically, you can make that on a Substack, because Substack has a really easy podcast platform, and it's so simple to like just land in people's inboxes every single morning with your little voice note. Like literally you could record it in 15 minutes and then send it out.
And to extend that, if she had a Substack that was audio, maybe like, you know, a few affirmations or whatever felt appropriate, that would also be a good way to showcase her other offerings.
Exactly.
And like seed the other offerings.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, if she wanted to do something that was live, that was a little more community focused, she could just give a link in her Substack, right? Like, here's the link for this morning. Like, come join us as a reminder to notify people like that this thing is happening. And that is super easy to set up. I also think that just like looking at the content that she's created, she has so many different things that she works on, and that she like interesting sort of angles that she gets at, that it would be really helpful for her to have like an intro course that's self-guided, like a 3-day or a 5-day super simple course on something like getting over people pleasing, or like how to reframe people pleasing tendencies, or even like how to start thinking about recovering from religious trauma or something like that. Just like a place to start, because she's got a membership going right now, and I think it's a little confusing maybe for like someone who's just going to jump in.
She has so many offerings, and I think that's what I saw when I was looking at her page here to join the community. There's so many different levels, and I think for me it's just a little bit overwhelming in terms of, okay, clearly there's so much on offer, but I feel that it could be drilled down a little bit more simply to like, okay, what are the unique things that you're offering that other people aren't offering on the platform, so that I need to leave TikTok to go get those things.
Exactly. And the rule of 3. Remember the rule of 3, everyone. You want to have 3 options, no more than 3, no less than 3. Rule of 3 is going to be best. So if you have more than that, cut them down. I think also, like, we haven't talked about the easiest pathway to go with someone who has a huge following on TikTok or Instagram, which would be indirect paid content, like sponsorship or affiliates.
Yeah, totally.
What do you think about that for Frankie?
I think it would obviously have to be stuff she's like very, very aligned with. So it would be specific and maybe a little bit more labor intensive to manage.
Yeah.
Not to say that there aren't, but that I feel like with people like her who have such specific messaging and hold integrity really high as part of their brand and values system, I think it's definitely a fine way to go. It's just maybe a little bit more complicated. I don't know.
Definitely. I agree. I think what could be cool would be like maybe a collab with like a journal.
Like content partnerships.
Yeah, or even just like Bando, right? Like Bando makes a journal that's like the Frankie journal. And
good point.
So like Bando is sponsoring and like making the product, and she doesn't have to worry about like supply chain shit. Yeah. And then she can, you know, promote like her work in that way, which would be amazing for both parties involved.
That'd be great.
Okay. Woo! 4:55. That was pretty good.
Nice.
That was fast. Okay, so that's our 5-minute mark. I'm sure there's a bunch more that we could think about, but
definitely.
I think that's a pretty good start. What pops out to you as the most interesting?
As the most interesting offering?
Yeah, like what do you like of all the things that we sort of
I
laid
like
out on
the
the
daily
table?
cast.
Yeah.
I think it's just because I really feel this with a bunch of creators that I like, especially on TikTok, which seems to be her bread and butter. When I want more from someone on there, you know, on YouTube, it's often like longer content and I'm overwhelmed.
Same.
But anything 15 minutes and under, I'm like, gimme.
Same.
I'm ready.
I feel the same
Love
way.
it.
And like, I really like podcasts that I can just tune into every morning. Like that is the best for me. But I also know that like there are people that really enjoy the community element of like connecting and waking up together and sort of like being
the group chat.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that could be really cool, and she could come up with a great way to do that.
Podcast, community, intro course.
Yeah.
Brand partnerships.
I actually,
bonus.
The brand partnerships kind of came out of nowhere for me because I don't typically suggest that to people, but I think that she has a big enough following that it wouldn't be a hard sell for a brand.
No.
And I think that could be really, really cool and potentially lead the way to her making her own products.
Yeah.
Because a great way to test is to have someone else make things for you, right?
Totally.
Like figure out if it works first, and then you can sort of like do your own experimentation. But if another brand sort of wants to float that and you can be the face of it, which is effectively you're licensing your name.
Yeah.
That can also be very lucrative.
Absolutely. I liked your journal idea, and I feel like now there's also so many platforms that could be interested. Not to say that Notion would do this, but something like that.
Yeah.
Like there's so many different kind of online journals now that also I could see being very into doing a collab. So maybe you do like a physical and an online subscription or something. I don't know.
Totally. And I think that we, honestly, in that quick amount of time, I feel like we gave Frankie a lot of ideas, but where would you start, you think? Where would be the first place to start? Probably with the daily cast.
I don't know what their schedule or her schedule looks like, but I feel like that's the easiest extension because she could reuse a lot of content. And I feel like to figure out a way to not make yourself do double work as a content creator is the best thing you can do.
That's right. She could like take a little 3-minute clip of like a morning recording and then put that into TikTok.
Yeah. So just feed two birds with one stone, as they say.
As they say. Yeah. And I think, what platform do you think you would use for that?
I like the Substack idea.
I think that would be the easiest.
Because I like Substack a lot.
Yeah, and they're pretty affordable. Like, they don't take a huge cut, and they're just like only getting better and better. Their phone app is amazing.
It's so good. Their products are good.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I have a lot of Substacks that I really like.
Me too.
So, and they seem to be good to creators. So
Yeah, I think that's where I'd start too. And I also would...
Because then she can grow her email list at the same time without like really, really trying.
Exactly.
And just like see how it goes, slowly test out other content in there, whether it's like lists or affirmations or longer posts if she wants to write.
Yeah. And if you wanted more of a community feel, Frankie, you could do something like Circle or even Mighty Networks.
Oh, yeah, totally.
You know, because you can do lives in Mighty Networks too.
Yeah.
And, but those are slightly different file-wise. I would say a little bit more complex to set up. Maybe not as like user-friendly. I think more people are on Substack than people are on Mighty Networks. But yeah, that's where we'd start. I think you've got a great little business here.
Yeah. Go, Frankie.
Yeah.
Go, Frankie. Go, Frankie.
Okay, if you're listening to this and you're like, but I don't have 30,000 followers on Instagram. I don't have 3,000 followers on Instagram. That's okay.
You just need 1,000 true fans.
It's true. You don't even need, you need 100. Start with 100.
Yeah.
Like, and all of the things that we talked about, you know, Frankie in particular, because she's got such a big following on TikTok, which is a very particular type of content user. We're talking about making a paid content opt-in. But you know what? I don't think I would make that. I don't think that I have a big enough following to do a daily musing,
yes, you do.
Paid musing.
Yes, you do.
I don't know about that. I don't know, me personally. So I think something to think about when you're a creator is like, what do my people want?
Yes.
You know, how do they want to spend time with me? Yeah. What is valuable to them?
If she should poll.
Yeah, she should totally poll. That would be, I mean, and do user calls, of course, but you can also kind of tell from what your audience responds to, right? If your audience is growing like gangbusters on a platform like TikTok, they want more content. But if you have a podcast that a lot of people listen to and really enjoy, that's long form that you're teaching, well, that could mean that you are an excellent candidate for making a course. If you're already coaching people and people love your coaching, but you have a small community, you could make a membership that could be incredibly lucrative. You don't need thousands and thousands of people. You need maybe hundreds of people to be in your membership, and you could be making 6 figures easily with not a really heavy amount of work.
No.
Depending on what you want to make. It really just depends, and I think it's helpful to see like how other people think and what they're thinking about. And of course, like Frankie could also go the traditional route and just like do regular ads. Right?
Yeah. Sure.
She could totally do regular ads on a podcast if she wants to make a podcast or on an email list or even on her socials. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, and especially with such a big following, it's easier to even partner with brands that you already believe in and that you already stand behind, so it doesn't have to feel like a compromise.
Exactly. But I think a lot of people, you know, don't want to go. It can be a lot of work to go find those brand partners, you know, like
we know
we're hiring for that job right now.
Actually, if you're really good at that, hit us up.
Yeah, it can be time consuming, that business development side. And that's why direct paid content, which we talked about today, versus indirect paid content, which is things like sponsorships, ads, affiliate. Direct paid content can just be a little bit easier because you can control all of it. So there's no middleman who's saying, oh, no, we're actually not going to pay you that rate, or like, let us get that approved, or blah, 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 or the check hasn't gone through yet. So if you are a little bit of a control freak, that might be the strategy that sounds best for you. And I know for me, that made the most sense.
If you don't have the time and can't hire the help to nurture those relationships, like brand partnerships, relationships, that's why a lot of people who have big followings or are influencers have agencies.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's a lot of work to negotiate, to define
terms. You have to like have a lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even still, like, control, sure, but also just if you don't have a lot of time or resources, direct paid is an easier way to go about it.
Exactly. And of course, you have more control over the content that you make too, which is nice for people who are incredible, talented creators like Frankie and probably like you, dear listener.
Yes.
So that's our little case study. Let us know if you liked it. Maybe I feel like we should do another one. That was really fun.
That was fun.
So if you're not following along on Instagram, what are you doing, my friend? Follow Holisticism.
Yeah.
And we'll do a call out. We'll see who wants to be our next case study. I did this on my personal IG, so sorry for all those who missed the option. But
no, it's great. We'd love to do more. It's always so fun.
It's
because you guys are so cool too.
Yeah,
people are always doing interesting things.
It's so easy to come up with business ideas for you because you have like killer foundations. And you have the coolest thing about like when you start building your community is you can go in any direction. Like Frankie has at least 10 business ideas that we just threw into her lap because she's focused on building that community and she makes great content. And once you have those fundamentals, you can do anything you want, which is the point. And you should. Like, you have freedom. And that's so like exciting and interesting and exhilarating because you can also change your mind. You know, you can start doing something, monetizing in one way, and then decide that you don't want to do that anymore and pivot and
evolve.
That as you should.
Yeah, of course.
So that's the episode. We'll do another one of these. This was fun.
Let us know what other types of case studies as well.
Yeah, and if you're a creator, you got to download our our archetype guide, which is, we'll put it in the show notes, and also our creator dashboard, content creator dashboard. It's inside of Notion. If you are making things on an editorial calendar, if you need help with an editorial calendar, this is for you. So you can go grab that stuff at the link in bio, and that's it.
That's it. See you next week.
You're the coolest.
Love ya.
Bye.
Bye.